Hello everyone, this is Easy Natural English with Liam, which means for the next 10 minutes or so, you'll be listening to some natural English with no script and no editing, so you can get used to the sound of natural English, but just a little bit easier than what you would hear in movies or TV shows. And today's topic, I'm going to talk about culture shock. So this is a word that you've probably heard before, especially if you're someone who likes to travel or if you have lived in another country before, which probably a lot of my listeners are, because usually, people who are studying another language. So if you're listening to this, you must be studying English, so you must be interested in either traveling or living overseas or dealing with people who are coming from overseas to your country. So, some way or another, you must be interacting with foreign people, so people who are not from your country. So, what is culture shock? So, culture shock is when you go to maybe you go to a new country, or maybe somebody comes to your country. So it's when two different cultures come together and maybe clash. Maybe they have some problem, or maybe just some surprise, or some shock. So this is something people ask me about a lot, because I've lived in 9 countries and I've traveled to about 30 countries. So people often ask me, like, what was your biggest culture shock? But to be honest, I don't really ever feel like there's never a moment when I think, this is culture shock. Maybe there's been some moments when I think, that's different, or I didn't expect that. But I've never really felt like, what should I do in this situation? What do I do? I've never really felt that kind of anything strong enough that I thought this is culture shock. And I don't know if that's because I'm like a flexible person, or if because some people are just exaggerating. Exaggerate is when you make a story sound bigger than it really is. But I'm from the UK, and I've lived in Vietnam, and now I live in Japan. I've lived in Australia, New Zealand, France, Holland, Portugal, Spain. Did I say all of them? I think that was all of them. And of course, my own country, the UK. But I've never felt such a big difference in those countries. I think maybe the country that I felt like I didn't belong was maybe Spain. And I know lots of people here in Japan, where I live now. I think sometimes people think Europe is all very similar. But actually, I feel more comfortable in Japan than I felt in Spain. And Spain is a really great country, and there's lots of great things about Spain. Very friendly people, beautiful, countryside, nice weather, great food, interesting culture. But the way like customer service is in Spain is very relaxed compared to what I'm used to as a British person. And here in Japan, customer service is very they take it very seriously. When you walk into a shop, you always get a welcome, and they always check everything is okay. And the customer service in Japan is, I think it's famous. I think anyone who's come to Japan knows that customer service is very good here. And in the UK, it's usually pretty good. And in Spain, I think it's just a difference in culture. I think for Spanish people, it's okay in Spain. Maybe they don't see a problem with it. But yes, often I would walk into a restaurant or something and try to get someone's attention, and they wouldn't even, say like, oh, one moment, please, or anything. They would just sort of walk by, and I just had to wait for them. And, it was a very direct way of dealing with each other. The way people speak for me is a little bit direct. As a British person, like I said, I don't want to say that it's wrong or that it's bad. It's just a different culture. I know, obviously, for Spanish people, that's okay. But yeah, that's probably one of the countries where I felt the biggest difference. But I wouldn't quite call it like culture shock. I never really was, sort of feeling, I don't know. Is culture shock that big usually? I'm not sure. Maybe that's enough to be culture shock. But I feel like the word shock is quite strong. Usually I would use the word shock, like if someone, if my brother told me he's having a baby, if my brother is pregnant, I would be shocked, because, usually men don't have babies. So then I would be shocked. But, just having a little difference in customer service, I wouldn't really call that a shock. I'm not sure. Perhaps, people use this word differently than I do. Culture shock. And then food, people, I think, expect some kind of culture shock with food. But I've honestly, I just like food. I like all food from different places. And I've never tried anything that I thought was like disgusting. I've never eaten a food and thought, this is gross, this is disgusting. I've never felt that way. I've eaten things that I thought, it's okay. Maybe, I wouldn't choose to eat it. Maybe, I wouldn't make the choice and I wouldn't order it, but it's okay. Yeah. I've never eaten anything that I thought was like, wow, how do people eat this? I've never felt that way. In Japan, people always think that foreign people don't like natto. Yeah, so people here in Japan, it's one of the first questions you get asked as a foreign person in Japan. People ask you, what's your name? Liam. Can you eat natto? It's always the first question. So natto, if you don't know, is fermented soybeans. Fermented means you add bacteria or yeast to food and you leave it for a long time. So for example, yogurt or beer. These are fermented foods. Kimchi is a fermented food. Sauerkraut in Germany is a fermented food. So fermented food is something that's been kept for a long time with bacteria or yeast. And natto is soybeans fermented with bacteria or is it yeast? Or maybe it's both, actually. I'm not sure now. Maybe it's both. And then the soybeans become slimy. They become a bit sticky. So, maybe some foreign people don't like it. But I think actually a lot of people from outside of Japan, when they try natto, they like it. I've eaten it in restaurants in New York. And I've eaten it in restaurants in Vietnam, Japanese restaurants in those countries. So obviously people in America are eating it. And obviously, people in Vietnam were eating it too. So I guess some people like it. And I like it. I eat it often. It's really nice. And it's pretty healthy too. Crazy foods. Sometimes, the different animals that people eat is a bit of a shock. I lived in Vietnam and some people there eat dog. So sometimes, and I live next to like a dog restaurant. So sometimes my friends would come to my house and see like the dog meat hanging and be like, oh my God, it's a dog, But we eat pigs, cows, chickens, sheep, fish, many animals. I know dog is usually a pet, so it's seen a bit differently, but, if you think eating dog is strange, then maybe you shouldn't eat any animals. Maybe eating all animals is strange. Who knows? It's just different culture, I guess. So yeah, what's normal for you might not be normal for somebody else. That's important to remember with culture. If you grow up in a country that does something, then it won't be strange to you. Yeah, that's culture. So I think, yeah, and if you have that attitude, if you remember that, oh, this must be normal here, then I guess you don't get culture shock. And maybe that's why I don't really feel culture shock, because I know everybody's different. You know, even within one country, everybody is different. So, you know, everybody in the UK is different. Everyone in Japan is different. You know, not from each country, I mean from each other. Everybody's unique, everybody's different. So just, yeah, accept people and try not to get shocked by their culture if it's different from yours. Yeah, let's enjoy the differences. Let's just enjoy the differences. Anyway, today I'll wrap it up here. Thank you all for listening today. Please like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, review if you're on the podcast, share with your friends, and I will see you all back here next time.